As I was walking to class on a snowy winter day, I looked over and noticed my neighbor's dog chained up in his backyard. This dog was freezing cold, shivering profusely, and hadn't been tended to since before his water bowl had frozen over. I ask myself to this day, what did this dog do to deserve that? And I've yet to find an answer. I hope during the extent of this speech you're able to gain a perspective as to what it's like for some of these dogs to live their lives. I also hope that you have an open mind as to what we can do to fix these problems. Now that you've heard my story, I will now reveal the three main causes of animal abuse. Number one, the lack of regulation on animal population. Every year, 6.5 million pets enter animal shelters. Of those, 1.5 million pets are euthanized. There is currently no regulation on pet population. Number two, the correlation between domestic abuse, child abuse with pet abuse. Those who usually commit violent crimes against humans also have a tendency to commit violent crimes against pets. In one study, 71% of people that committed domestic abuse also abused pets. In another study, 88% of those that committed child abuse also abused pets. Number three, pet hoarding and neglect. Pet hoarding and neglect is pretty common and goes unnoticed. It's whenever someone obtains too many pets to take care of and they end up neglecting them. Usually it's due to a mental illness or a socialization issue, and usually the perpetrators are women over the age of 60. Now that you've heard the main causes, I'll now share with you a few stories. An elderly couple from Oregon was said to have housed up to 550 dogs on their property. Some of the dogs lived inside, some of the dogs lived in cages, and some of the dogs lived in abandoned cars. Another example, the remains of a dog who is said to have been chained up and left for 19 days without food or water was found in a California man's backyard. 3 dogs chained up with no food or water for 2 weeks while an Oklahoma City family was on vacation. Luckily, 2 of the dogs were able to be rescued. However, one tried to escape to find food and ended up hanging himself. Now that you've heard these stories, I will now share with you 5 things that we can do to prevent them. Number 1, everyone who wants to have a pet must obtain a pet ownership license. The license must be renewed every year, and you have to take a pet ownership class every 2 years. This will provide those who are serious about pet ownership with the appropriate information they need. Number 2, limitation on the pets per person per household. If the limit is exceeded, one must pay a luxury tax. This will drastically help with the overpopulation. Number 3, there'll be a national database for all pets. The database will include the medical history and the pet profile of every pet. This will help with the pathology of diseases as well as add to the overall health of your pet. Number 4, anyone with any history of abuse will be denied a pet ownership license. It makes physical sense to remove the privilege to those who are not deserving. It is a privilege. An exception would be those who have registered an animal as an emotional support pet. Number 5, those who adopt from a shelter can include it as a tax write-off. However, those who purchase a pet from a breeder have to pay a luxury tax. Let's take dogs, for example. 34% of dogs are purchased from breeders. However, only 23% of dogs are obtained from animal shelter or humane society. Only 25% of dogs that enter local shelters are purebred. Creating an incentive to adopt over purchase from a breeder would decrease the number of pets in shelters, thus decreasing the number of pets that have to be euthanized every year. Pets' lives matter just as much to them as our lives matter to us. And I know there's no way to fully eliminate animal cruelty, but we can create a system in which the lives of our beloved companions are the most protected. It's a privilege to own pets. It really is. And we're lucky that we live in a world that we have a voice to stand up for those whose lives matter to us. So let's stand up for the lives of those who have no voice.